Should you buy or rent a house this year in 2023? This has become a really hot topic amongst young adults, first-time home buyers, and other people that have been relocating here to our area. Some of you may think that buying a home in 2023 is no longer a good idea since mortgage interest rates have gone up from all-time lows in 20 and 21, making that cost of ownership more expensive than it was before. But you also may be feeling the squeeze in rent prices since they've been rising rapidly as well, meaning it might be better to buy a house now so you can lock in that rate and payment for 30 years on a fixed rate loan and avoid higher and higher rent increases coming every year. Buying a home or choosing to rent is a monumental decision for anyone to make, especially during these weird financial times we're in. That's why I'm here to walk you through a truly realistic scenario based on real world facts and data to help you understand all the moving parts associated with each decision. I'll also talk about some of the lesser thought of benefits and downfalls to each decision so you can confidently and accurately make the decision to buy or rent for yourself or for your family. I did my best to keep this comparison apples to apples. I've selected a home for sale right down the road from our office. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, around 1,500 square feet, listed for $360,000. I found another house with the same bed, bath, and garage count, similar square footage in the same neighborhood, listed for rent at $2,405 monthly. Obviously, if you're trying to compare buying a little trailer in a 55-plus community to renting a penthouse condo in downtown Tampa, this exercise is not going to give you accurate results. This was as close as I can get to keep it real world and real data on real homes. Just note that this explanation is just an example. There are some assumptions made, but I did my best to keep them between the lines of averages and real world numbers. I even lean more conservative in some of these estimates here, just not to try to inflate things to make them look good or bad. People's finances are like doctors' patients. It's all kind of the same, but every situation really is truly unique. So it's impossible for me to cover everyone with one statement or example, but I did my best to get everyone to relate. If you think I've made any mistakes, I'd urge you to leave your feedback in the comments. Also, if you enjoy this content and you find it useful, please drop a like on it and share this video with your friends or your clients you think need to see it. First, I want to address a few of the assumptions I'll be using in this comparison. Since Florida homeowners typically keep a home for an average of 8 years, that's the time frame I'm going to use for all of our calculations to determine if buying is cheaper than renting. I'm also going to assume an annual inflation rate of 3.8%, which is how much prices increase year over year. I know that you may be thinking 3.8 is a really low rate of inflation, especially with the price of eggs lately, but because our true inflation right now is somewhere around 6 to 7%. But just note this is an abnormally high rate of inflation, and the powers that be and market forces are working on bringing that back down, and we're not likely to see that remain that much higher over this 8-year period. So if you look back over time, you'll see inflation is even lower in the 1s and 2s in some years. So I thought it made the most sense to go back to the 1960 records and go to the 1960 to present and take an average for our comparison purposes. Now let's get started with our rental scenario. This home is listed for rent at $2,405 monthly, and I'm going to assume that this is an all-in number, that there's no other fees or insurance bills tacked onto it. You may be required to carry renter's insurance as a renter, which could cost you somewhere like $50 to $100 per month. So just because we aren't going to factor that into our calculations, make a mental note that that could be out there if you choose to rent. Now this $2,405 payment is only the payment for the first year that you're in that house. This rent will typically increase through the lease annually, which is where our rate of inflation comes in. In the 8th year of renting this home, we would expect to see that rent increased up to $3,122 per month. So I'm going to take the average rent adjusted for inflation, which comes to $2,750 per month over that 8-year period. This next step is an important but very often overlooked option, and that's calculating the money that you have saved by not buying a house and using those funds to invest in the market or other investment that you will see a return on those funds and lower your total cost of renting over those 8 years. We'll calculate how much it would have cost up front to buy the house and invest those funds in the market. Depending on what kind of loan you choose and what kind of down payment you have, you may have a little money or a whole lot of money sitting around if you chose not to buy. And good financial brains know that money sitting around has opportunity cost because it can be invested to make even more money. I'm going to flip over to our purchase scenario real quick and pull out those numbers for this calculation. Please note that I've chosen an FHA loan with a 3.5% down payment. So 3.5% of a $360,000 purchase price is $12,600. We would also have to pay around 2% of the price in buyer's closing costs. Again, just an estimate. It could be a little more or less, so add another $7,200 to that. Also, when renting, we're typically required to pay a deposit for our first or last month rent, or a security deposit, something like that, on the lease. So we'll subtract that first month's rent, $2,405, from our savings. So when we add these numbers up, the amount that we saved by choosing to rent versus buy comes to a total of $17,395. We can invest this money to make additional income. Let's say we invest this money into an ETF or an index fund and set it and forget it. This S&P index fund has seen an average of about 6% return historically. So after 8 years, we would have grown our initial investment from $17,395 to $27,724 for a gain of a little over $10,000, which works out to around $107 per month in extra investment income over those 8 years. We can subtract this number from our total rent average, which takes us down to $26.43 per month. Now that's our true monthly rent adjusted for inflation average over 8 years. Now I understand I'm throwing a ton of numbers at you right now, but this is important to build our accurate scenarios so we can compare them with accurate results. I'm going to lay it all out for you. Now it's time to take a look at the numbers if we're going to purchase a home. $360,000 purchase price, same neighborhood as the rental that we just looked at. We'll be buying this home with an FHA loan and bringing a $12,600 down payment. We'll be paying the $7,200 in closing costs, which totals $19,800 out of pocket. The rest of the money comes from the FHA loan in the amount of $353,479. FHA upfront mortgage insurance is included there. Right now, the average FHA rate today in January, at this day that I'm recording this, for a 30-year fixed mortgage based on a 700 credit score is 5.9%. This gives us a principal and interest loan payment of $2,096, almost $2,100. Unlike renting, this number is fixed and it's not going to change as the loan goes on. You get that payment for up to 30 years. Then the loan's paid off after you pay it in full. You don't have to worry about it adjusting for inflation, and that's a huge benefit to owning a home. But there are so many more costs associated with owning a home, and these could increase with inflation or for other reasons. You have to pay property taxes, which I worked out for this home will be an average of about $350 per month. You also have to pay homeowners insurance and potentially flood insurance depending on your flood zone. We're only going to focus on homeowners insurance for this example, and we'll pretend like you're not in a flood zone. We estimate that to be about $200 a month for a homeowners insurance policy. Since we're using an FHA loan, we also have to account for PMI, or monthly mortgage insurance. If you're using a conventional loan with 20% down or buying out PMI up front, or maybe using another loan product, PMI might not be a factor for you. But in our example with this FHA loan, it is a factor. So the monthly PMI will be $244 per month. This home also has a homeowners association, or an HOA, which is $50 per month. This makes your total monthly housing payment $2,941. Let's not forget that when you own a home, there is no landlord to call when something goes wrong or breaks inside the house. You as the homeowner are responsible for fixing or paying to have fixed those things that might fall apart. This is something that I can't really put an exact number on, but we'll do our best. For example, let's say that you need a new roof every 10 to 15 years. A roof could cost around $15,000, so let's set aside $156 a month for that. You're in Florida, and air conditioning is a requirement, and they don't last forever. We'll say a new AC unit's going to be about $7,500, so we'll set aside $78 a month for that. Now what about the little things that need updated or fixed? Let's put away another $20 for that, miscellaneous expenses. These amounts are going to vary based on the size and age, location, and style of your home. So again, doing my best to keep this relatable. This takes our monthly total cost of homeownership up to $3,196 per month. Almost $3,200. Now something that's interesting to note here is that the out-of-pocket housing expense of $3,196 is significantly higher than what we calculated for our initial monthly rent at $2,405 for that first year of renting. With only this information, it seems that renting will be cheaper than buying, especially with the initial outlay of cash and the higher monthly payment. But there are some other monetary benefits that come along with owning a home that you simply don't have access to when you're renting. As you make monthly payments to your mortgage, a portion of that payment will be going towards the principal balance of the loan or the equity. During this 8-year period, we'll be paying off around $456 per month in principal. This isn't a cost, it's more like a forced savings account that's tied to your home until you sell it or refinance it. Another form of savings we receive by owning a house versus renting is tax savings. As a homeowner, you're allowed to deduct from your taxable income the amount that you spent on your mortgage and interest and property taxes. So in our case, we'll spend an average of $19.89 per month. If we assume our marginal tax rate is 22%, that means we're able to reduce the amount of taxes we pay by $437 a month. Another form of income we'll gain through homeownership, and the biggest one over time, is going to be our property appreciation. Over time, housing has historically always increased in value. Think back to what houses used to cost in the early 90s versus today, or even 10 years ago versus today. Lately, we've seen some crazy high appreciation numbers, around 15 to 20% in some cases, but this isn't sustainable, and eventually we're going to see a slowdown or a correction there. The data shows us that real estate over the long term has pretty much kept up with the pace of inflation. Since we've already defined our inflation rate for this comparison, we're going to use that number at 3.8 as our expected home value appreciation. We can assume our home will be going up in value by 3.8% per year. So in 8 years, our estimated value will grow to over $467,000. This means the home gained $107,000 plus in value, which gives us a monthly appreciation income of $11.18 per month, which is a gain that you can subtract from your 8-year period of housing expenses. Things are looking better, but we're not quite finished. We also need to factor in the cost of buying and selling the home, the closing costs. It costs about $7,200 when we bought the house, and it'll cost us a little over $32,000 when we sell it. If we assume a typical 6% real estate commission and another 1% in miscellaneous seller closing costs. Even though these expenses are paid at the purchase and the sale, I'm going to stick to calculating them into the total cost over time like we've been doing with everything else. So that's a total of $39,917 or $415 over that 8-year time frame. Now let's take all those numbers and do the math. Your total monthly payment for the house, $29.41, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, HOA, PMI. Add your monthly repairs for maintenance, $255. Subtract your monthly principal pay down at $456. Subtract your monthly tax savings at $437. Subtract your monthly home value appreciation, $11.18 per month. Add back your closing cost on the buy and sale for $415, giving you a true monthly cost of owning at $15.99 per month. Now, it seems crazy to go from an out-of-pocket cost at $31.97 per month and somehow wind up at a true cost of $15.99 per month. But that does go to show you the power of asset appreciation, equity building, and tax advantages. So here's the final math you've all been waiting for. In this case, buying a house is $1,043 per month cheaper than renting what is essentially that same house over 8 years. With all this said, there's tons and tons of different factors that can change your results. Things like your tax rate, how long you stay in the home, age, condition of the home, whether you actually do invest that savings for a return or not, how much the housing market appreciates, the rate of return on your investments. That's why I tried to stay conservative and not overinflate any of these assumptions. If you didn't want to worry about having to qualify for a house or fix credit or save money, or you want to move around a lot and buying and selling a house is just going to be a big pain, you're having to fix stuff all the time, then maybe renting's a better option for you. Also remember from our examples that buying and selling a house is really expensive, and if you don't plan to be in that house for long, then appreciation in the market is not on your side, and you don't have much time to recoup those sunk costs that you put in the beginning of the house with your closing costs. So then it would make sense for you to rent. If you're going to live in a house for 3 years or more, owning is going to edge out renting. Historically, real estate has always been a great investment for the long term. It's been one of the biggest forms of wealth creation in U.S. history. I know this was an in-depth video, and I thank you for sticking around to the end of it. Some things to think about. They're not making any more land. How many well-off or successful people do you know? Do the majority of them own homes? Probably. Would you rather be the landlord or the tenant long-term? Real estate always wins. Again, this is Josh High here with Swift Home Mortgage. We do this day in and day out. If you want a comparison or if you want to kick around some numbers specific to your situation, that's what we're here for. Let's help you get qualified and really understand what you're getting into and help you make a good decision set up for you and your family. If there's anything I can do, give me a call. text, email, catch us on Facebook or Instagram. We look forward to talking to you and hope you're doing well. Bye-bye.